Hello, I'm Fergus Shanahan and welcome back to the Language of Illness, a series of brief presentations based on my book of the same name, published by Liberties Press. In this episode, we'll look at the healthcare system and the language used by the system. In prior episodes, we've looked at the language of the doctor and the language of the patient, but now we look at the distancing effect between the doctor and patient with the system they have to engage with. Patients need more time with their doctors, not more technology. Doctors also need more time with their patients for job satisfaction and avoidance of professional burnout. Sadly, as medical advances continue apace, the time doctors and other carers spend with patients actually diminishes. Almost every technological advance in medicine has been accompanied by a reduction in the time that doctors and carers spend with their patients. However, as shown on the right-hand side, the healthcare system looks at time spent with patients as an expense. The patient with illness no longer just deals with one doctor. Increasingly, patients must deal with a growing healthcare system akin to a bureaucratic maze. Over 150 years ago, Charles Dickens wrote of the Circumlocution Office, which will be reminiscent to many patients of trying to navigate an increasingly complex healthcare system. It being one of the principles of the Circumlocution Office, never to give a straightforward answer. Imagine if doctors and nurses spoke like this. De-escalate the crisis, leverage core competencies, empower you to think outside the box and engage with key stakeholders. Healthcare systems have their own language, the purpose of which is not primarily for the benefit of the patient. Rather, it is primarily to protect the system. Its defenders and apologists don't like danger words, which are verbs or action words, because they imply commitment. They prefer weasel words, resource allocation models, and words of deflection, I've commissioned a report, bridging words which reframe the issue, and transformed words like, where there are no problems, only challenges. And of course, there are the words to be avoided at all costs, like poverty, which is of course directly related to health. Curiously, the comfort words used by politicians and defenders of the system are easily recognised because they're seldom used by ordinary people. They tend to be deliberately vague and imprecise and allow the speaker to claim that they have been misconstrued or taken out of context. The or words are common examples: reform, restructure, reconfigure, review, revise. When it's not necessary to change, it is necessary not to change. The folly of continual reform and reorganisation is eloquently captured in the following quotation. We tend to meet any new situation by reorganising, and a wonderful method it can be for creating the illusion of progress while producing confusion, inefficiency, and demoralisation. And a number of healthcare scandals were caused by a continual reform of a system. Politicians and defenders of the system will frequently resort to patient experience surveys, which are notoriously unreliable. The politician will say, over 80% of patients express satisfaction with their hospital experience. Note, he didn't say 20% or 1 in 5 were unhappy with their experience. Moreover, as Professor Edward Shorter commented in his book, patients are willing to declare themselves happy with the most appalling medical service. So much do they hope that they've been given good care that they're seldom able to acknowledge the fact or prospect that they haven't. One group of patients are particularly vulnerable to the obfuscation created by the system and its language. These are the inarticulate or poorly educated. How much worse do we sometimes handle those who are less well informed or articulate, wrote Tessa Richards in the British Medical Journal recently. And another commentator noted that the linguistic disadvantages of the underclass transform a class into a caste. Recall Liza in George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion, or Liza Doolittle in the movie My Fair Lady, about class and language and how language sets Liza free, gives her independence, and changes the way she's treated. In my view, we are at the crossroads in healthcare. Is the doctor an agent of the patient or an agent of the state and or the medical industrial complex, which is the system? I believe that patients are no longer dependent on their doctor for information. For chronic disease, the doctor's role will become more akin to that of a coach helping the patient navigate the system of healthcare. That's it for this episode. Join me next time on The Language of Illness when we look at a different aspect of the entire topic of how patients interact with their carers.